Hi guys, today we're going to be doing Mercury in the first house. Very quickly, I want to go over what the first house is. It is your appearance, it's your physical body. I'm just looking down at my notes. It's how you self-identify. It's your shield, it's your armor, it's your meat slab, if you will. Your general attitude towards the world, your approach to life. It is one of the aspects of your clothing and style, not including Venus. Your general health and vitality. It is your goals in life. It is your introduction to the world. The first minute that you were introduced, what were the vibes that you were feeling? So that's the first house. Mercury is communication of all kinds. It is when we text, it's when we call, it's when we write notes, it's even our sticky notes. It can be our handwriting. It is any way that we transmit ideas. These are books, these are voice messages, these are emails. This is the stuff that we like to talk about. This is the stuff that we like to read and to learn about. This is how we speak, the tone of our voice, and most importantly, it is what we speak about. There are two celebrities that I felt like were really good examples of Mercury in the first house. We have Jordan Peterson, and then we have Bobby Brown. So we're going to get into them a little bit later in the video. When it comes to the first house, we have this section that I like to call the id, the ego, and the superego. It is each aspect of those is about ourselves. And when we have Mercury in the first house, like I said, Mercury is what you're interested in talking about. You're interested in talking about yourself. You're interested in talking about your life and all its components because you find that very interesting. What else am I going to talk about with someone if I'm not talking about myself? Is the vibe or is the mentality that you put out. So you want to talk about your day, you want to talk about things that you have coming up in the future. If you have like a vacation plan, if something big just happened in your life, or even if you're talking about other people, but they're in relation to you. You might be in the break room at work and you might be talking about your son just graduating from high school or your niece that's staying over or something like that. It's still always in some way just going to revolve back to you. It's not even that you realize that you're doing this, but Mercury is also what we think about. You're thinking about yourself. You're thinking about your life and what's going on in it. So when you're talking, you transmit the things you've already been thinking about. And so again, a lot of what you transmit, most of what you transmit is somehow related to something that is going on in your life. When you're getting ready in the morning, when you're brushing your teeth and doing your hair and doing what you do, when you're looking in the mirror, you're thinking about, okay, I gotta pick this up on the way to work. Then I have to get to work by 9 a.m. But also, what do I want to eat? Where do I want to order? Me, I. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It is just where your Mercury rests. It's where your Mercury resides, thinking about components of your own life. You're interested in talking about your experiences. You're interested in inserting yourself into the conversation, making yourself a topic of the conversation. Even if the topic is broad, you could be talking with friends about politics, but you'll still come back to my opinion. This was my experience. I seen this one time, or my family member believes this. It will all in some way have a connection to you. You're also interested in acquiring knowledge in this lifetime. The first house is a very, very important house. And when you have Mercury here, especially if it's conjunct the ascendant, being smart, whatever that means, learning something, getting better at some skill, becoming more and more educated about a certain topic is one of the, front runner goals of your life. You're interested in acquiring knowledge and you're also interested in gaining experience, which is like a hands-on knowledge in a sense. If you are trying to learn about a psychological topic or maybe even a financial topic, you can read a book, and so the learning is all cerebral. But if you are also trying to learn other things, if you're trying to learn how to change a tire, you can watch a bunch of videos all day, you can read a book, you can talk to someone about it, but there is some things that we just have to do again and again, and that in itself is the hands-on learning. That's also something that you guys really like to do because Mercury is about our hands. So your hands and your mouth and the talking and just the Gemini-esque part of us is integral, is central to you making your way through life. And so you will like those sorts of things too, where you can like, oh, I'm supposed to put this here. Oh, it doesn't fit. Oh, and I figured it out how something fits without having to read a book or having to ask someone. I know it because I did it. And that is knowledge that makes you smart. Nonetheless, you still really love, really appreciate, and you have a reverence for reading, for learning, for acquiring knowledge, reading research papers, watching documentaries, reading books, taking notes, and just getting all the information that you can about a certain topic. Mercury rules books, so you will have a lot of books about the topics that you're interested in. The topics that you are interested in will largely depend on the sign it's in. So if it's in Libra, for example, you may want to read a lot about relationships, relating to people in general. Maybe like How to Win Friends and Influence People might be a book that might be at, the top of your bookshelf or one of your most read books. If it's in Cancer, you might be reading a lot about your country's history, or you might be reading a lot about cooking or emotions or things like that. But the theme of wanting to learn and wanting to become better and having this hands-on experience will remain the same, because you spend so much time learning all this stuff, reading all this stuff, and acquiring all this knowledge. It's like, it's so important to you, it's so exciting to you, and it's something that you've done. You want to share all this with people. So when you're meeting people, you could be, we've all had that person where it's like you're having a conversation and you could just be talking about cooking, and then they'll be like, oh, I read this article where if you use this type of utensil, it's bad for you when you cook, and I know this because, and then you start listing all these facts. You're doing that because you have a lot of information that you want to share. So wanting to share and transmit knowledge, this could lead to you wanting to be a teacher. This could lead to you trying to have a podcast or a YouTube channel, writing a blog or some sort of article where you're like, look guys, I spent a lot of time on XYZ topic. I know a lot about this, and I just feel like I can't hold this in. I need to share this with the world, because you want other people to learn too. You are attracted to you are attracting and attracted to other people who are the same way, other people who want to learn, other people who want to talk, other people who want to share. If you're talking to somebody and they're not saying much, they're not talking about, you're not learning from them and you're not learning from the conversation, it can become a little bit boring to you because it just doesn't stimulate your mind. Because this is the ruler of Gemini, which gets bored so easily, which needs so much stimulation, as soon as you learn or experience something, you're quick to want to move on to the next thing. You're quick to want to learn something new. You feel, Gemini energy in general has this feeling like, I know this. I've been here, I've done this, and or I know what you're going to say, I know what you're going to do, I know what's going to happen next. There's like this dullness that comes over your eyes where you're just like, okay, like obviously. So that's why once you learn or experience something, you want to go on to the next thing. If you've never been to Coachella and then you've been to Coachella, that's great. But then after Coachella, you're not to say that you wouldn't want to go to Coachella every year, but you're kind of just like, okay, I've been there, done that. I want to go to the next festival, and that could be Comic-Con. And then, you go to Comic-Con, and then that's great. And then the next year you're like, okay, I've done Comic-Con. I know what's going to happen. I know who's going to be there. I know the vibes. Now I want to go do something else. And the same goes for when you learn. If you're learning about, I don't know, the body and working out, you got the basics and you feel like you're pretty good at knowing things. After that, you're going to want to move to nutrition. And again, once you know about nutrition, because you're so hungry to learn, what would be the point in your mind of continuously reading up and trying to learn about things that you already know? You're going to feel like, okay, you're going to be just reading a book or listening to a podcast. You're going to be like, yes, I heard this before. So moving on to things that are new, and learning about those things is just very important. It gives you vitality, because the first house is our vitality. It makes you feel energized. It makes you feel revved up to feel like I'm learning. It makes you feel like you are alive. The first house is also our first impression to others. It's similar to the 10th house in that it can also be a part of our reputation, but this is just bam, when we're first meeting somebody. When people first meet you, they're going to think that you are very intelligent because you are talkative. You may or may not be intelligent, but they are going to feel like that because it's just this unconscious psychological thing. This person is yapping away. Obviously, they feel like what they're saying is important. They feel like they know what they're talking about. They look like they believe in what they're talking about. You could be talking about a conspiracy theory. You could be talking about the flat earth. You could be talking about anything. But because you're so revved up, because you're so passionate, and because you're like, yes, I talked to this person and I read this, it's going to come across as this person is really smart. You can also come across as very intelligent to people because of the words that you use. You really love words and you really love communication. So your vocabulary is going to be more extensive than the average person. You're going to use more niche words, more specific words. The way that you string the words together, the way you pronounce them will be very eloquent and will make people think, oh my God, this person talks like this all the time. And most likely you do, because especially when words are important to you, it's not that you're even trying. It's just like you just call to mind. You may say, an average person may say, oh, that was a nice surprise. And you might go, oh, that was so serendipitous. They mean the same thing. One phrase is probably more common than the other, the first one, but for you, the learning and the putting used to things that are new is going to cause you to come across and have a more vocabulary, which just further underscores this idea that you are a very intelligent person and you are not afraid to speak. People will also think that you think that you're intelligent. They will think, hey, this person thinks that they're pretty smart. They may or may not think you're smart, but they will know that you think you're smart. A lot of times, what we think of ourselves and what other people think about us don't always match up, but it doesn't matter. You can look at a Leo and tell like they think they're the shit. When you look at a Mercury in the first house person, you can look at them, whether you think they're smart or not, and think this person thinks that they're very intelligent and they think that what they're saying is very important. So that's a big first impression that you're going to put off on other people. You're also going to give to people the impression that you are very experienced and very cultured because you have taken so much time to learn all this stuff. There's not going to be a lot of topics that you haven't at least slightly perused Google or a book about. So people are going to be able to talk to you about a lot of different things. If something, for example, if a singer is not big here in America, but they're huge all around the world, the average person may only know what they're mass exposed to, what is in the mainstream, and that's it. But because Gemini is always learning, combing through information, trying to expand their experience and their knowledge, they're going to be like, oh, that big singer that's big in Korea that almost, a lot of people here don't know about, you know about it. And that's going to make people think, oh my God, this person is cultured. This person knows more culture and knows more life than what's in front of them because they took the time to seek it out and they took the time to learn it and they took the time to broaden and expand their mind and their horizons. People are also going to think that you're very experienced. Mercury in the first house, people similar to this Gemini energy, you're doing a lot of things. So these are definitely the people. And Mercury is also going around town, short trips. Mercury in the first house is the kind of person who is like, oh, that deli, yeah, I've been there. Oh, that club downtown, yeah, I went there a couple nights ago. They have karaoke. Oh, this little niche bar over here that nobody knows about, I went there for my friend's birthday. And people are gonna be like, oh my God, you have so much experience because you're talking about so many things. And even people may try unconsciously, or maybe they're not even trying, but they are talking to you and there's not much that you don't know about. There's not much that you haven't read about or you haven't seen or you haven't heard about. It's what keeps you going. And especially as you get older, that repertoire of what you know and what you've experienced just gets wider and wider. And people really appreciate that. It's not super fun, or it's not as fun, I should say, to talk to somebody who just knows basic things about, their very small world. We want to talk to someone who has sort of an expansive energy and an expansive mind. So people will like you a lot for that. You also give off this impression because you switch from one topic to another. I noticed that Mercury dominant people and Gemini dominant people very much cannot stay on one topic for long. I have a Mercury in Scorpio in the 12th, so I can talk about one topic for hours. Hence why I'm talking about astrology on this channel for hours. When you're a Mercury person, you have to keep switching it up. You can talk and say a couple sentences about the weather, and then instead of keep going on that road of talking about the weather, then you're talking about the weather in Peru. And then once you're talking about the weather in Peru for like a couple sentences, then you're going to talk about what you want to do, where you want to travel this summer. And then you're talking about where you traveled last summer with your friend named Chantel, and then you're talking about what's going on in Chantel's life, and all of those conversations can happen within like 5 minutes. You bounce around a lot, which also gives people the idea that you've experienced a lot and you've seen a lot and that you've talked to a lot of people and that you read a lot. We have Jordan Peterson, who has a first house Mercury. I don't personally agree with his political and moral stances, but I thought he was a good example. Jordan Peterson is a person who feels like what he's saying is very smart, feels like he wants to share that with the world, that he wants to teach. He likes to back up the things that he says with this study or with this anecdote or this time or this person or this example, constantly talking, putting out his ideas. Again, I don't really agree with him on anything, and I think that he should do more listening. But I think Jordan Peterson is a good example of an unevolved Mercury in the first house person. But still an interesting example nonetheless. You can have a tendency to overtalk others because you're so excited about what you have to say, and it just pops in your mind and it comes to you so quickly, and it's so energizing because this is our first house. Anything Mercury, talking, ideas, learning, gets you just so revved up, and so you can kind of just blurt it out. It's always at the tip of your tongue. You just have to get this in, and it's not always because you don't care about what the other person is saying. Sometimes you are very intrigued by the conversation. You're very stimulated. You're like, man, I'm having a great conversation with this person, and I want to see what they have to say about this, and I want to see what they have to say about that. And it can come off as cutting people off when they're talking. You also really value your own thoughts, so subconsciously you believe that it needs to come out immediately. Everyone needs to hear what I have to say because I just have something so smart and so amazing to say. And you also feel like you are a great conversationalist, and you feel like you know the best way that a conversation should be going. There is an art to conversation. I always say this, and I think it is extremely important. And some people have it and some people don't. But you feel like you have it, and so subconsciously you feel like the conversation should be going your way. When my Mercury first progressed into the first house from the 12th, I just noticed that accidentally, like when people were talking, and I've never done this in my life, I would just kind of cut people off right before they were done the sentence because I was so excited to say what I had to say, and I was so excited to like add to the conversation. And as much as I try not to do it, I do it all the time, and so I really have to work on it. But it's sort of like a physical, I don't want to say twitch, but a physical reaction to just the strength that we feel towards our ideas. But as long as you work on giving other people the space to speak and to say their truth and to be an equal part of the conversation and not dominate it, just have some patience with yourself and ask other people to have patience with you, because a lot of times it's not from a bad place. It's just from an excited place. You may come off very strongly as a very flighty person, and this can come in many forms. This can come in a form of, like, you ever talk to somebody and they just have like ADD and they're just going to go like look around, and you're talking to somebody and they're looking back at you, and then they're over here. It's like they can't pay attention. So you could be flighty with your attention. You could be flighty like you're all over the place. Like every time I call this person to hang out, they're like, oh, I'd love to, but I'm over here. Oh, I'd love to, but I'm on vacation. Oh, I'm with this person right now, and maybe another time. It's like they can't pin you down. And you can also come off as flighty when it comes to your interests. I used to have a coworker, And every couple months he would be super obsessed with something. And then a couple months later he would be like, I don't want to talk about that anymore. And he'd be super, super obsessed with something else that I never heard him talk about, that wasn't related to the first thing. And he seemed to have no interest in the previous thing. And he would say, you know, like, I'm really into guitars. And then he'd buy all these guitars and get super into it. And then a couple months later he'd say, oh, I'm not interested in this anymore. Now I'm interested in shooting guns. But now you just spent all this money on guitars. And he's like, you know, all this stuff is just piling up in my house. You can also be a person who changes your mind frequently about the direction of your life. You may be changing your mind frequently about the direction of your career, what you want to go to school for, who your boyfriend or girlfriend is, what your religion is, what your style is. You may want to be very natural and demure, and the next week you might want to, not next week, but like next season you want to be very heavy-handed on the makeup, and then you want to go grunge. And it's just like you're kind of can be all over the place when it comes to your appearance and when it comes to your style. When people see you as in this way, especially if they're more Terrain type, if they're more Scorpio type, if they don't feel, if they're more of an earth sign, or they're slower in general, where they feel like, you know, every time I call this person, I can never get a hold of them. They never answer. They're always busy. Or, you know, I call them and there's all this noise going on in the background. I can't really have a deep, meaningful, consistent bond. Or if they feel like they can't even build that bond or sustain that bond, people may start to lose interest in you. They may start to not call as much, not because you're not interesting, but because they know what kind of answer they're going to get when you answer the phone. And a lot of times it can be mutual. It can be that you stop calling them because you met Susan at work and you know about her kids and you know about what she's doing in her yoga class and you know where she's going. And so it's like you may have hung out with Susan for, you know, a couple months or even a year, and then a new coworker comes, and now you're so interested because you don't know them yet. It's all a mystery. It's all new things to learn. Now you're trying to see what she's doing on the weekend and what they're doing after, what they like to do after work, and where do they live, and what about their life. You're kind of on to them. Susan may stop calling. But also, like I said, it can be mutual because maybe you're like, Susan, I know you. Not to say that you guys don't have staying power, because you do, but these are just some of the impressions that certain people can get from your actions. You will also appear to have a very young energy. Gemini is very animated. Eyes can go darting in every which way, like because this got your attention and then that happened and then that has your attention. You can speak very, very fast. Moving your hands when you talk. You are looking like a very lively person. You're not just, you know, talking like this. You're being animated, and even if someone is looking at you from far away and they can't hear what you're saying, they may see you going like this, and they will think that you are energetic. And energy is a lot of times something that we attribute to younger people. We think that they more talk like that, they are more rowdy, they're more goofy, they're more, you can look at a group of kids and you're more likely to see a kid throwing a paper ball than you would in, you know, an office building where everyone's in their 40s and 50s. So because you are so nimble, good with your hands here and there, talking lively, you will come across as having a young energy. You can physically, and often do physically, appear way younger than you are. You just have that face where people are just like, are you old enough to drink? And you're just like, yeah, I'm 35. But whether it be because your physical body may be thinner, maybe a little bit shorter, or just because of the quickness that with which you move your limbs, people will tend to think that you are way younger than you are. And that's beautiful. You know, who doesn't want that? That will last with you through your life. So, you know, if you're 20 and you look 12, don't be mad, because when you're 40, you're gonna look 30, and it's just gonna keep going like that. You will also be very curious. If there's something that you don't know, if someone brings up something in conversation that you haven't heard of or that you didn't know about, or they, you know, start saying some facts to you or citing their own sources, you're gonna be very curious. And I think curiosity that we find a lot more in children. Children are more curious for exploring the world, for how to use things. They're more interested in asking questions. As we get older, we tend to feel like we know things. We're not as curious about things that don't directly pertain to us. And even when things do, we kind of just tend to, and I'm saying we as just in adults in general, may tend to want to just kind of learn the basics that we can just use to get through our life. I have an iPhone. There are so many things it can do that I don't even know, and I don't really care. It does, I get what I need out of it. But a child is more likely to go through every app and push every button to see what it does. You have that energy, you have that curiosity, and that is also what makes you appear younger than you are. It's not just your physical appearance, it's also like how you act, but in a good way. People will also think that you are very funny because you are very witty. You know how to come up with puns. That's what we do when we make people laugh. We use our words and we try to be funny, and you guys are very, very good at that. Very, very clever, very, very quick. Never miss a chance to make a joke often that has a double entendre or something that draws on something that happened a week ago, and people are just like shocked that you even came up with that fast. And so again, people would think that you are very funny. I would say that you guys should even try some stand-up comedy, just, you know, amateur night once or twice in your life and see how you go with it. You're also very funny because a lot of times stand-up comedy has to do with crowd work. You know, someone blurts something out in a crowd, you want to be able to quickly say something back. So you guys are great at that. You will also come off, just my final point, as being extremely social. This comes naturally to you because you feel like it's an opportunity to get interested in something. Humans are just a plethora of experience, of knowledge, of so many things. It's like each person, every experience they've had is like a treasure chest, and you just want to get to know. So anytime somebody is walking past you, they can see you talking. And if you have a job where, you know, they encourage you to, you know, be more focused and be more serious, your boss may always, every time they get some water or go to the bathroom, they might be like, damn, this person is talking again. You were talking to Susan, now you're talking to Lauren, then you're talking to Bob, now you're talking to the security guard, then you're talking to the guy in the cart out front that makes your lunch. Like, damn, people will see you as not just talkative, but social, because there's a difference. Some people, like Libra, like to socialize for the sake of connection. Gemini likes to socialize for the sake of connection, but also learning and also talking. You're often talking to your neighbors. Anybody who will listen is someone that you will talk to. And so because of this, you may tend to have a lot of friends and a very busy social calendar. When it comes to your appearance, you guys, like I said earlier, are often very thin, very nimble. Mercury is the co-ruler of Virgo, so you can tend to be skinny, but it'll be thin in a muscular way. It's not thin unhealthy. It's thin like I'm always moving, so any bit of fat or anything extra is shredded. Like I said, you may appear a lot younger in age than you are. You may even have a bit of a younger style, or just something about your face that transmits that you are younger. Your hands can be very pronounced. They could be very beautiful. They could be very long. They could be very nimble, and they move quickly, and they're a part of your life. If you are an artist, if you fix cars, if you do anything, if you sew, if you do something that works with your hands are a gift to you. And I mean, obviously hands are a gift to everyone, but even if you're like a braider or a hairdresser, it's like not everyone has the dexterity and the depth that you have, the depth of understanding of how hands work, the relationship that we have with our hands. I know that sounds, I know that sounds a bit dramatic, but it's true. Not everyone can do the things with different body parts that another sign can do. Someone can shoot a ball. An Aries may shoot a ball better than a Libra, but a Libra may do better makeup. And so using your hands and incorporating them into your life, having hobbies that you can learn and become better at, but that allow you to use your hands, such as knitting or sewing or drawing or playing the drums, is something that is very important to you. You're really gonna feel good when you keep your hands beautiful, men and women included. Put lotion on, make sure you use your SPF, even if men are just getting the clear polish, a nice bracelet or a nice ring, something that shows how regal our hands really are, is something that is important to you guys. Also, because Gemini is talking, you're gonna have a very nice smile. You're gonna have a prominent smile, big smile. Like when you smile, it could take up a significant part of your face. You may have big lips or very pronounced lips, like a deep, I think it's called a cleft here, or they just might have a certain shape, or something where it's like your lips are one of the focal points of your face. Something about the mouth makes the face what it is. So when it comes to your overall life path, because that's what the first house is, the ascendant is the route that we take to work. And with Mercury here, it is a major strength. It is a major way that we make it through this incarnation. Confident if we keep this area of life very much a part of our minds and very much in the forefront of what we do. So guys, that was Mercury in the first. I hope you guys like it, and tell me how you feel in the comments.